Today we are joining with Christians all across the nation and recognizing the sanctity of human life. The truth of God's word says that we have a Creator to whom all life is precious. And then the reality of many, many people's actions says, I hold a different truth than that. Now, I'm fully aware that some people, when it comes to life issues, think that it has no place in the church, that this is really a personal or political issue. We don't want to offend anyone who might hold a different belief. We get nervous about them drifting away. But make no mistake, and don't fall for the lie. This is a deeply spiritual issue. What we believe about life says what we believe about God. This is at the core of who God says He is and who He says we are. And I think it's days like today that Jesus had in mind when He prayed, keep them from the evil one. Sanctify them in truth. Your word is truth. And God's word points us to a reality that exists outside of our own feelings and emotions. It tells us He loves life. He loves all life. He loves all people. And He calls for all people to be cared for and protected and honored. He loves you. And all He asks back in return is that you love Him and that you love one another. Many years ago, Chicago subway workers staged what was called a wildcat strike. And they walked off their jobs in the late afternoon. Now, around 5 p.m. that day, tens of thousands of Chicago office workers punched out and they left their offices. And they went to the subways that were intended to take them home. And when they got there, they found that no subway trains were running. And so with this cauldron of emotions churning inside of them, they turned around and started to go back up the stairs to find an alternative means of transport. Now, there was an observant reporter from a Chicago newspaper there, and he watched this steady stream of happy, homeward-bound people going down the stairs to the subways, and this dejected, angry bunch of people who knew what those others were going to find coming back on up the stairs. Now, the next day in an article, this reporter wrote how not once did he see how anyone was coming up the stairs offer a word of warning to someone who was going down. These two groups were inches apart, and not a single one of the folks who knew about the stopped trains shared the news. How does that happen? How can people be so ignorant and callous about the needs of others? It happens when we misunderstand the responsibility that comes with that word choice. It happens when we face our difficult circumstances without this burden to do the right thing. And it happens when the most important thing is to be true to self instead of truth. And it happens all the time. On this anniversary of Roe versus Wade, we recognize that it's now happened nearly 50 million times in this country alone. Those are the documented cases of abortion that have come all in the name of a choice. It happens every time that a life is scarred or ended through neglect or murder or euthanasia. And make no mistake, all of these practices find their root in the selfish self. And for almost 2,000 years, the Christian church has said there are two ways, one of life and one of death. One is right and true, and one is evil and a lie. Now, this way of life now may be called smugly by the liberal elite anti-choice. But it is the same age-old battle for hearts and minds and souls and the lives of millions. And it is a battle where God's people must come forth and must speak the Lord's truth in love. God is calling every single one of us who is here today to believe that there is truth on this matter. This is not subjective.